Dave,
John,
Shane,
Chad,
these sci-fi guys.
Well, welcome to these sci-fi guys. I am your host, Dave, and with me is, let's see, who am I going to put first this time? Okay, we'll do John, Chad, and Shane. You guys are waving. Remember, we're audio. We're actually doing a lot better on audio than we are on video, so make sure y'all are talking.
Hello.
hola.
Well, I mean, but it's kind of weird for us all to say "hey" at the same time. Like that gets a little confusing.
Well,
too.
we all say crash and burn at the same time at the end.
That's
Although I did
different.
record it.
That's
So.
pre-recorded and synced up. We're not synced up on the hey.
Don't give away our secrets, John. Don't give
For
them
those of
away.
you that are looking, this is not a cigar or anything. These are just these little cookie things that you crunch that's got chocolate in the middle.
Sure.
And you talk about me giving away the illusion, Shane.
True. Fair point. Fair point.
Had to. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys listening to us. Banter is the fun. We enjoy talking to each other and stuff. Today we're talking about a movie called Contact.
Yeah.
The one from 1997 with Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, and a ton of other people.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. All right. But yeah. So let's start with behind the scenes. Now I'm gonna have to make this a little smaller so I can actually see the notes that I got. Actually, Shane picked this movie out this week, and Shane was like, "Hey, I've got all the info for behind the scenes if you want it." And I'm like, "Well, be my guest." So he actually gave me most of the info that we're doing on here, if not all of it. And I said, "Well, absolutely."
Worked
So-
himself into a job there, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, I don't mind. We don't get paid for this, so yeah, it's just fun. Okay, this movie was here. Let me put it on the stage here. Was based from Carl Sagan. He wrote a novel called Contact. Those of you that are audio, I actually got a picture of the novel on the screen. I looked on Amazon and found it, and it actually it was written in 1985. Carl Sagan is a acclaimed astrophysicist, astronomer, and author. No, he is not Sheldon Cooper. All right. So, oh, come on. Y'all didn't get that joke? All right. Never mind.
Ish. It's
Well,
I got
actually,
it.
wait a minute. Raj was the astrophysicist, not Sheldon. So,
Yeah, I was
Yes.
about to say.
Raj.
Yes, it was Raj. Yeah.
Raj. Okay. So, Raj. Anyway, so the journey for this film began in 1979. He basically wrote 100 pages and sent it to Warner Brothers. And the novel, later being published, it re-entered development in 1989. Several setbacks. And then the final production ran from September of 96 to the February of 97. So that's why it took so long to make the movie because, I mean, you guys all know every time you read a book and then they want to change it to a screenplay into a movie, there's just so much that they have to do to change things,
Oh, for sure.
That's just one of the, I mean, I think of when we watched Ready Player One, 2 years ago. And then I went back and read the book and, it was totally different than what we saw on the screen, for the movie. I mean, the movie was fantastic. The book was very, very good, but it was a lot different.
Yeah, they are drastically different.
Yeah. So let me talk about the director here. All right. Our director for this movie was this guy, this guy in the middle. His name was Robert Zemeckis. He was the director. All right. He's better known for his work with Back to the Future and Forrest Gump. He was a crucial part for the movie's success. He had a passion for scientific and humanistic themes that are explored in this story. His ability to combine special effects with emotional storytelling helped shape the tone of this. Now, I don't know if I mentioned or not. The main character in this movie was Jodie Foster. Jodie, she was Dr. Ellie Arroway. She was deeply invested in this movie. She actually met with Carl Sagan to talk with him to kind of pick his brain on, how she should act, how she should react, and things like that. You know, she was very drawn to the script because she's an advocate for science and education. She was drawn to the script because of the intellectual challenges and the way the story dealt with themes like faith, science, and the unknown. All right, so, and I mentioned him earlier, Carl Sagan. There he is, right there. And besides writing the screenplay for this, he actually it's very subtle, but he is a cameo in this movie. A scene where Ellie speaks with her deceased father. Sagan appears in the background as part of a video recording. And of course, his influence on the film was beyond just the story's context. He basically was there when they were recording and just kind of helped guide. Oh, hey, this like here, this would not work. You can't. They would not say that, or they would say this. Things like that. Okay. One of the big things on this movie was the Iron Machine. No, the iconic machine, Iron Machine. That was pretty cool.
Well, it could be iron too.
Yeah, it could be
It's
Iron.
not
I don't
Tony
know.
Stark's.
Iron Man.
Good one.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the things, the visual challenges was especially with this. Remember, this came out in 1987, so they did use a lot of CGI for this, and they did use a lot of practical effects and a lot of miniatures. So it was a kind of a combination of all three. I thought you would really enjoy that, John. That it wasn't just strictly CGI. It was
No. I love when they combo it, at least, especially during this time period. But even nowadays, I still love the combination.
I agree. It gives it more of a realistic feel when you don't just have it one way.
Oh, I agree with that. It's so much just that I think it allows depth when you're watching something. I mean, like the picture I have up on the screen is just a CGI rendering of the machine itself, and you can see, oh, it looks, but in the movie, it looked fairly realistic, like, oh, that is something we really could build. All right. You'll see if you guys watch this movie, you'll see a lot of commentary from CNN in the background. A lot of the stuff with President Clinton, all those things. They actually contracted 25 news anchors from CNN to be part of the movie. Larry King Live, Crossfire were also contracted into the film.
I'm kind of more impressed with that fact than the modeling and all.
Yeah.
I know, and it was a pretty decent movie. One of the things it got positive reviews when it came out. Right. However, a lot of critics felt that the movie's philosophical questions were at odds with Hollywood's sensibilities. I hate to say that word, but that's just kind of what. But
true.
It was really what Hollywood wanted to push their agenda, and it was kind of at odds with that. Nevertheless, it still became a cult favorite over time, especially those fans that are among of Carl Sagan's work. The film had a budget of $90 million, and it grossed $171 million worldwide. Shane said he wanted to talk a little bit about the music.
Yes, I do. So one of the cool things with this movie in particular, so the composer was a guy named Alan Silvestri. And he is a world famous composer. He's in a lot of big movies, and actually he collaborated a lot with this particular director. They actually did the film together for Forrest Gump, Back to the Future. Their very first film together was in 1984. It was Romancing the Stone, which if you haven't seen that, it is with Michael Douglas and and I can't think of the lady in it. But
I
anyway,
can't think of her name either.
good movie, funny movie. Anyway, but he
Danny
also
DeVito's is in it.
yes. But he also wrote music for Castaway and also The Avengers. I'm wearing the hoodie for that.
Hey, there you go.
Also The Avengers. Okay. He is best known for really having very deep musical thoughts. What I mean by that is that he is very good at creating emotionally charged music while also being able to bring in those atmospheric elements, which is perfect for this movie because he and the director have very, very similar ways of doing things. He did use both a full orchestra and also electronic sounds. And the reason he did that was to contrast, of course, the vastness and the majesty of space, while also bringing in some of these mechanical things like with the alien machine and everything. One of the interesting things he did was that there really was one general main theme that kind of carried all the way through the film. But what it did was it really focused on a development, kind of a journey type thing, for example, and it kind of went along with what the main character was going through, Ellie, and it kind of developed through that. Some of the words to kind of describe it are things like curiosity, longing, vulnerability, things like that, while also bringing in some of the majesty and the haunting that you think about whenever you're thinking about the unknown and alien life and encounters and things like that. He used a lot of sweeping passages with a full band, full orchestra, to kind of symbolize the vastness of space, while also using these very, very quiet, intimate moments, which really kind of went along with the self-reflection and the self-development that the characters were going through. So it's really very masterful. One interesting thing was that Contact was nominated for one Academy Award for Best Sound, which is like mixing and stuff like that, but it didn't win it. However, the composer did win the ASCAP, ASCAP, I guess what it is, ASCAP, a film and music award in the top box office film category. I had never heard of the award or the category, but there you go.
Hey, there you go.
He did win that. But this score is considered very much a standout in sci-fi films in the 1990s, and it really helped to cement the composer's reputation as a great film composer. And then, of course, he later went on to very big ones as well after that, like Castaway and The Avengers.
That's very interesting. I just, you don't think. I mean, honestly, I would go back and when I was thinking about, when I watched the movie a couple days ago, I didn't notice the score at all. Which to me that means it's good. What I'm saying?
It fits in everything.
It made everything fit in.
Yes.
And so, like when we watched 2001, the score was fantastic, but it was so misplaced that it was in your face. You're just like, oh, why is the da 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 da? It's just like, okay, it's a good song, but it doesn't really go with what they're doing here. So
right.
Well, some of the suspenseful kind of driving beats this one had even caught me off guard a few times. Just picking up on it, I was like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, I agree. My opinion is that the best scores out there, if you have a movie that is very complex, makes you think, you really don't want the score to be overpowering because it's too much. It's too much to take in. But like with this movie, because the plot is so complex, and we'll get into that later, the music really just enhances it. So like you said, Dave, you really don't necessarily notice it, but it still makes for some very big moments like John was talking about.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to our questions. Okay, Shane, you picked this movie, so you can start off with whichever one of your questions you want to ask.
All right. So let's get started with our first question. Our first question is, how does Contact explore the tension between faith and science, especially between the two main characters, Dr. Arroway and Reverend Joss? Do you see a way to reconcile these worldviews? And I'll go up and I'll start with Dave.
Thanks. Oh, okay. Well, there was a lot of tension, especially when she was doing the whole interview to go on the sphere, and then basically she just said, "Hey, I don't believe in God."
Mhm.
I mean, that was kind of her whole thing. Hey, I believe in science, and that's it. And this movie really was a portrayal of both sides of, okay, faith on one hand, science on the other, which is right. What do you need, especially in this circumstances when you're meeting with an alien species, which way works? And I think, okay, I will start to say that Reverend was a lousy reverend.
I would agree with you. I would agree.
The first time you meet a girl and then you're in bed with her, yeah, I just, no, that's just. But is there a way to reconcile these two worldviews? I mean, we're all faith based, people. The four of us were all Christians, and we have that faith based worldview. Do I believe that there is science out there? Yes, I do. Science has been able to prove so much, but you have to look at some things with faith. Uh, I joke about the Big Bang Theory. I think I made a joke about it earlier. Just the Big Bang. Science believes in the Big Bang. To me, it takes more faith to believe that, bam, and then everything happened, than it does that there was a creator who created everything. So there is a way. It's just, it is a fine line that you just. It's almost a tightrope where you have to balance to make sure you're in between the two.
I would agree. John, what you think?
I mean, obviously the film really hits kind of hard on that between two main characters, and I mean it's a forthcoming theme, and it circles back on itself towards the end of the film, especially with no one believing what she's gone through. Like it almost kind of shifts her perspective a little bit. Like, oh, I see what he's saying. And ultimately, for me, these two worldviews are, as someone who loves science dearly, loves teaching it, loves, STEM club at our school. I love science. And honestly, I think these two realistically find their reconciliation in the word faith, because both science and obviously faith, I mean, belief in God, they both require you to take some leaps sometimes that aren't comfortable and challenge belief. And at the end of the day, it comes down to faith. And there's a lot of stuff I think sometimes we hold on to dearly because of church tradition that can be let go of. And there's a lot of stuff we hold on to in science that needs to be let go of because, I mean, our understanding of things do change. But ultimately, like at the end of the day, God is and will be the same. And so there are some things we can't give up there. But I think science doesn't necessarily change that. I think science in of itself is just a good way to see how God put things in motion and how well they stay in motion. And I think that's how I reconcile things. Just like old Earth versus young Earth. I mean, technically, Scripture doesn't really make a hard call on that. We make a hard call on that based on our theology, absolutely. However, I fully stand with the fact that God is God, and He could have built on the earth with pre-aging. It also could be billions of years old. At the end of the day, Scripture is not clear on that. So when I say there are things we can kind of let go of, church tradition would say absolutely it was in days, but a day to God, 1,000 years is like a day to God. And so there's things that I think aren't cut and dry. and it makes it easier for science to step in and be like, well, even if the Earth is old, doesn't matter. The point of the creation story isn't old or young Earth. The point is God created, and it's just fun to kind of look at those things and reconcile them. And I like the way the film kind of approached it, and just centered around at least this idea and word of faith. And I think that works out real well for it.
Good points.
Mhm.
Chad?
Agree with that. I mean, if you look at the end of the movie where they're coming out of the Capitol and they get in the car, the reporter asked Matthew McConaughey, "Hey, do you believe her?" That
Mhm.
kind of you can tell where he knew is, hey, I might be a religious man, I might be the man of faith, but she's science, and I believe her. They just you can't just say by video and see it. Yeah, for that 45 seconds, it just bought the thing went from the top to bottom. That's all everybody else saw. But but to her, she was, I'm seeing something. Something's happening inside the thing. So that 45 seconds was what, almost 18 hours
Mhm.
of time. So it's been known where I think it's where it's like you're going to space. Well, every there's this things that you come back younger when you go into space, right?
Mhm.
So it is known for the time to be slow. So yeah, it's all about faith. It's all about the perspective of how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with all of y'all's points. I think that there is most certainly a lot of tension between the almost polar opposite views of both of the main characters when
Mhm.
you really break it down versus pure science versus pure faith. But I think that the equalizer between the two of them is the search for truth. And I think that one of them uses science, one of them uses faith to find it. But I think what's interesting is when you really look at their journeys, especially at the end, like Chad was talking about, they kind of almost bridge a little bit together, because they kind of find faith in each other. And I just think that's a cool way to kind of see that. I think it can be reconciled. I agree with what John was saying God is God, and the scriptures are very clear on that. But I do think that science plays a part in faith. I really think it can, and I think that whenever you do it the right way, you can bridge them together. So I like that. All right, second question. The aliens use radio waves or signals to contact the human race and send out their message. Is this a realistic method for communication between the stars, or do you think it would be communicated in another manner? And let's start with John on this one.
Knowing what I know about light in general, radio waves are at the end of the day light, and they're going to travel at the speed of light. And I think at the end of the day, that makes them very effective. The issue is when you're talking space, light sometimes can take years to travel. But in order to change that system, we would have to find something faster than the speed of light to communicate any quicker. And I think if we are finding something to communicate faster than the speed of light, then I think we are already in space and doing other things. So I think to be that far out, maybe we will find a different way of communication. But radio waves are still very effective in space, and that's why we use them for telescopes, and that's why a lot of our communications with things that are in space right now, they're still radios, and that's just there's a delay, and we know about it because light still takes time to travel through space, and slows down a little bit when we get to Earth. And there are ways we can speed that up, but at the end of the day, it's the speed of light. It's the fastest thing we know, and so I think it's effective. I don't know if we'll ever be able to go faster than that.
Yeah, good point. Chad, what you think?
I agree with that. It's because you think when everything goes down, even cellular service, what's still out there? Hand radio.
Mhm.
So radio waves is going to be the thing. Yes, the thing that communicates. But if we're trying to go faster, I agree with John. We already be in space doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was just to kind of piggyback on both of those is I don't know. I mean, when you're talking about sending a signal through space, I don't know what other options you have. You know, you're not going to send like a video transmission. Case in point, if you were, it's going to be one direction. That's it. You know, you have your satellite, you're pointing it one direction, it's going to go that way. While radio signals, radio waves, I mean, we're surrounded by radio waves, so they're omnidirectional. So if you were to play it, it doesn't necessarily. I know the movie kind of made it look like it was going in a straight line, but it's going out in all directions. You know, yes, some of them like your like Chad said, your ham radio and all that. You know, they're boosted by antennas and all that, but you know they're primarily not just going in one direction. Should have had a One Direction song keyed
Oh,
up.
you should have. That'd have been perfect.
Would have been perfect.
Perfect.
Can't think of it.
Yes, I agree with what everybody's saying. I think that the radio waves are very effective, like John was talking about the speed of light. I think that's definitely something to take into consideration. I do wonder, because of the technological advances that have happened in telescopes, if potentially image transmission might be something that could be another way, because of how powerful those are and how far reaching they are. But at the same point, that also involves light, if you're sending light out that far and everything like that. So I mean, I think that for the movie, the radio waves work well, and they really allowed for a lot of complexities in the messaging. So I mean, I think that it probably was the best way to go. Okay. So the alien machine, all right? So the machine is a pivotal part of the movie and allows for contact, there you go, with the alien race. If you were left with the decision to move forward in the project or not, so you got the plans, you figured everything out, you see what this thing's going to look like, how would you handle that situation of either moving forward or saying, no, this is too much, and why? Whoever wants to jump in.
I mean, I'm just gonna say depends on how much I'm getting paid and who's my boss.
I was going to say, who's financing it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm probably going through the project just from a love of science and all that it entails. But at the end of the day, yeah, who's signing my paycheck? If I'm the top guy and it's up to my decision, it's a little different. But at the end of the day, you would normally, if you're over the project, you're not normally the top person. So at that point, who's signing my check, who's telling me what to do, as long as it doesn't go against my morals, I'm okay. If it just means there's life out there, great. God created more life than us.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Is depending on one, who's financing it, and who's the one that's ultimately making all the calls. You know, obviously, if we were put in that situation, we would still have the president, or you would still have other. You know, they had what was her name? Angela. Can't think of her last name. Who was in this movie? Well, anyway, she was kind of like, like the boss. You know, so is it her making the decisions? Is it me? If it's me, I don't know. I mean, I'm going off of radio waves, radio signals. I think I might have to play the devil's advocate and say no. Well, why are we doing this? I mean, yeah, we heard some noise. Okay, we put it together, and this is what we think we see. You know, and I guess there's enough proof there to realize, okay, we should go with it. You know, and it would answer the question: are we alone? That's a big question. Is that so many people have to deal with in this movie and in real life. Are we alone? Are we the only living sentient beings here in this galaxy, in the universe?
It's kind of lonely if we're not.
Yeah.
Or if we are the only beings.
I mean, what was the saying that she kept, or her dad said, then she said,
It sure is an awful waste of space.
Yeah. If there's so much space out there, why it's an awful waste of it, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Chad, what you think?
I kind of agree, but I agree with that. I got nothing else to add. I'll be honest.
I'm right in the middle. I like the idea, like John said, of let's move forward. We have this. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. It's going to answer a lot of questions. But I also think about with Dave, where it's like, if I'm in charge of this and I'm getting these signals from radio waves from the beyond, is this really going to work? And how much is it going to cost? How many lives could I possibly lose? I would really, really think about that. So I really don't know which way I'd go. That'd be a very, very hard decision to make. Very hard. Okay, so thinking about all that and seeing how the plot of the movie unfolded and everything like that, do you think humanity is ready for an alien encounter?
No. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think we, even if it happened today. Oh, I found something on a radio wave come from a star 26 million light years away, and it sends directions of how to build a machine to get there. I don't think we're ready to there because we're still in. You think we're still a baby age we're still a baby in terms. Like we were born with each other. What do you think we're going to do? Oh, we're going to get there and figure out how to conquer it. Not come in
True.
peace.
True.
I don't know. That's a hard question for me. I'm thinking that we, as especially Americans, I'm just going to use Americans for example. We have seen so much science fiction that if it really did happen, I think we would be, oh, okay, it happens. Let's go with it. I mean, honestly, we've been doing this for 3 years, and we're on our third year now of doing this podcast, and we're just touching the surface of how many movies there are out there, and that's not including TV shows, and that's not including comic books and
Books.
yeah, novels and what have you. I mean, I really think that, I'm going to retract what I said earlier. I really do think that America and probably all over the world, I really think they would be like, okay, let's do this. Let's go ahead and meet. It goes back to that other thing. We want to know if we're alone or not. And I think they would be ready for it.
Yeah, so I actually land somewhere in between on this one. I think we have a lot to figure out before we're quote unquote ready. But then again, I don't think this whole idea of us making contact with aliens is going to ever come at a time where we would be quote unquote ready. Humans definitely have a lot to figure out amongst ourselves in terms of arguing, powers that be, all of that good stuff before I think we would ever be considered ready. But at the same time, if they show up and we have evidence like is presented in the movie, I think it'd be a little easier for us to come together. Obviously, there's some diplomatic stuff that even happened in the film that I think would have to happen in real life. But the second issue that I think actually stops us from being ready now is actually this age of information we're in. It's so hard to decipher what's real and what's not. And even if we have real evidence, there's still going to be a question of, is it actually real? And I think we live in an interesting time where it's actually hard to decipher if something like this would be real or not. And that makes it more difficult to actually figure out if we would be ready. And so I think that encounter would just have to happen whether we're ready for it or not.
Indeed.
I agree. I kind of fall with John. I'm there in the middle. The only thing I would say is that I would hate to see any more congressional hearings like that. Then yeah, I could see more and more and more of that, and that would just be a waste of time. But anyway, moving on from that. Okay, I do have a bonus question, and
go ahead, do it quickly.
I'll do it quickly. So for this one, During Ellie's grant presentation with the Hayden Group, one of the executives said that her proposal was less science and more science fiction. She gives a very passionate speech about how the innovation exploration has come from people challenging the notion of science fiction. What are your thoughts on that question of science versus science fiction?
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Ooh,
I think so
nice.
much we write into fiction has come true, but it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did we write about it first and then make it happen because we wrote about it? Or was it something we were headed towards anyway and somebody had just happened to write about it years ago? But it definitely feels almost like we write this stuff into fiction and then we start to work towards it just to see if we can. And maybe we work towards not making the same shortcomings that they write into fiction with that, but it just seems like we hit a lot of the same pitfalls. We hit a lot of the same technology, just maybe in different ways. So it feels very self-fulfilling prophecy to me.
Yeah, I was thinking very similar. Is that things start out as science fiction, but then become fact. Case in point, I mean, I don't have one with me, but hey, Kirk's communicator was a flip phone, and that was done in 1960s. And then what happened in the 1990s to early 2000s, we had flip phones. So things might start out as science fiction, but then we get to a point where we make it fact.
Yeah.
Yep.
I agree with that. I mean, it's to the point where if you look at it, look at the robots now. Like, if you look at, remember in the 80s,
yes.
you had was it Shortcut?
Short circuit.
Short Circuit.
Short Circuit, yeah.
Short Circuit, and then and all the robots movies comes up. Now they're using ones that almost looks like iRobot. So, I mean, I think it's all self-serving. Like, I want to make this real. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that exploration and discovery turns science fiction into science.
Yeah, we'll go with that. And with that, we'll go to our next segment of plot holes. Okay, in this segment, we looked at this movie and we say, was there any blatant plot holes out there that just you're like, that doesn't make sense? So, does anybody have any? I don't want to call on anybody. I'm just gonna throw it out there for everybody. Does anybody have any that you're just like, oh, that was a plot hole?
I got one.
Go ahead, Chad.
So, you notice, right, the first machine, it blew up. Doctor, the Jodie Foster saw the guy at her place where she was found it preaching, right? But then she recognized him. How in the world did he get there? Like, why didn't they go through security checks to go on to even workers? Something that top secret. Well, not secret, but like sensitive.
That was one of mine. Is like, okay, this should have the most secure area whatsoever, and yet he gets through. Yeah.
Yep.
That was
I agree.
just. Anybody else? Anything else?
For me, along that same vein, the plot convenience of just number 2 being that quick and readily available kind of threw me for a loop on the storytelling side. I was like, okay, I get maybe there is another one that y'all had ready, but like this quick and already fully put together and just ready to go. Because to my knowledge, this movie didn't jump time, and all of a sudden it's just like he's like, no, we have another one. It's like, oh, okay. Let us not feel the weight of that impact immediately.
Yes, exactly.
You got the Hastings, that rear doctor, the
right, Haddon, yeah.
Hadding. You got to think he had more driven into it. Like, here's another one. How did he get into space that quick?
True.
How about you, Shane? Did you see anything?
I did. So one of the things that got me was, and this is kind of a small one, but whenever Ellie talks about how long she was there. She says around 18 hours or so. She doesn't have a watch. So how does she know that it's 18 hours or so? Just and whenever the thing fell through, if it was just a split second, how do you explain the chair being disconnected and her being
Yep.
on the floor?
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed. I was like, well, what about the chair that was smashed up into the ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
She would still be connected to it.
Exactly. Okay. The only other thing I really had was if an alien race wanted to really transmit a signal of prime numbers, AM band is not the way to go. It's just there's too much noise. And it's just, anyone that's ever talked on a CB radio or listened to AM radio knows it's, if you want to do like a Morse code or, using a single carrier wave or something like that makes more sense than AM,
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go to our next segment then. If anyone else has any of that they want to throw out there? Nope. Okay.
No.
Then we're going to fix or improve this movie. All right, Shane, you picked this movie. We're going to let you start. What would you do to fix or improve this movie?
So two things. One, so going back to kind of what you were talking about, Dave, I would have gone into more about the prime numbers and how the signal came in, how it was layered, different things like that. I think they kind of touched on it, but they really did not kind of go into it. It was just kind of, oh, it's coming in prime numbers, and then it moved on. Then it's like, oh, it's layered sounds. Moving on. I think if they would have spent a little more time and kind of gone into that, maybe that's just the nerd in me coming out, but I think that would have kind of helped to kind of see how it got there, I think is a good way to say it. The other thing that kind of drove me crazy was at the very end, whenever they made the statement of the static on her camera was around 18 hours. Why did that not become public? Why did that not get put out? Like you just had this big hearing. You just basically made her look like a moron. But then you find out
that was part of mine too. Is what did that accomplish?
Exactly. Right. But if you would have actually made that public, but there again, also that would have brought further credence to the fact of she might have been right. There may actually be people out there and all that kind of stuff. So it could have opened up a can of worms, but I just think that that's not something you just say, oh, that is interesting, and then move on. I think you've got to dive into it.
Okay, Chad, how about you?
I agree with that. I mean, to me, if you really want to fix it, take that part out. If you don't want to open those can of worms, don't even have them talking at the end. Say, oh, the 18 hours of static. Well, what do we want to do with it? Other than that, they explain the prime numbers or figure out why there was two. Like, I would have kept watching this if it was a little bit longer, just to explain how, hey, it took another 6 months. They were building it. They started this second one when the other one, first one was halfway through. That way they didn't just add a little bit more story. I mean, it could be a longer movie and people would still sit there and watch it.
Okay. John?
For me, I think you just end up having to take away it was well paced and then it wasn't, and then it was well paced again to me. There was just a section where it just felt very rushed in regards to the bombing, and then the second one, and then her actually following through on that. Like that whole section of me, like completely wiped out the good pacing of the rest of the film to me. So for me, my fix would be to just take out the bombing section, add to that faith tension a little bit, and have that older gentleman who won the position out, have him actually self-sacrifice so that she can have it in a way that like it would trigger some of that faith thought. And I think you fix a lot of that rushed section with the bombing and all, and you add into the tension you were building kind of from the get go. I think that would be a good fix.
That's
I
good.
like that.
I got probably several, but I'll try to narrow it down. One, okay, let's not have a relationship with her and
Yeah,
McConaughey.
Yeah.
All right,
especially
make
that we
them
don't
just be
explore a whole lot.
Yeah.
make
There's
them
no
be
reason
very
for it.
close friends. You know, it was a typical '90s. Oh, they're in bed. Okay, just don't even put that in there. You know, I mean, if anything, just make it where she doesn't even know he's that then.
Mhm.
And then you could ask her, then she could ask the questions later, you know, if you really wanted to go that route, you know, well, why did you sleep with me or whatever, you know, if you're a man of the cloth.
Mhm.
And then if you're going to have two, that's fine. All right. But it should have been under immediate blackout, both of them. Or even better, the second one, everyone should have been like, okay, it's done. We're not doing anything. And then that's it. You do the other one completely in secret, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Don't even tell them that there was a second one because now you're just asking somebody else who's a religious zealot or something else to do the same thing that the first guy did, you
True.
know.
Oh, sure.
So
Almost just like kidnap her. Like, forget that whole secret messaging thing. Just kidnap her and take her to the base, you know?
Yeah.
yeah, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then give us a better ending. Really,
Mhm.
the whole okay, well, there was 18 hours on that. You know, again, we already talked about okay, the spear. What about the seat? You know, all right. So, or was it completely intact when she went through? You know, or what? We don't know. It didn't ever say that, but I just didn't understand why. What was the whole point of? Well, we had static for 18 hours. You know, I didn't understand that. You know, okay, well, if you did that and then you just totally blew her reputation, what was the point of that? You know,
Yeah.
are you going to try something else and try again and send other people through? Or, you know, there should have been something better to be like, okay, hey, we're going to start sending other people through
Yeah. Yeah.
on a regular basis, you know.
Yeah. That was my thought. You have to go somewhere with it. You can't just
Yeah.
leave it as like, oh, it was static. Okay, whatever. No, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's the way I. Okay, so we are going to now go and rate this movie. Being the sci-fi nerds that we are going to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 5 lightsabers. Shane, you picked this movie. We're going to let you go first, sir.
So if you haven't been able to tell, I'm a big fan of this movie. I loved it since the first time I saw it when I was a kid, and I enjoyed watching it just as much this time as I did back then, and when it first came out. I think that the plot is really good. I think it holds your attention very well. It's almost a 3-hour movie, but I never felt like there was a time when I kind of zoned out. I think that the music was very good. I think it enhanced the movie very well. I think that the deep tension between faith and science, I think, is very interesting, and I think it really kind of makes you reflect and think, and you really see an evolution in the characters, and I just think that's done very well. So with all that being said, I may regret this in later movies, but I'm going to go ahead with it, stick with my convictions. I am going to give this a 5.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow. Okay.
I may regret it later, but I'm going to go with it.
So we you may be retconning that later on. If
Yeah.
you-
Yeah, I probably will be. I probably will be.
Okay, Chad, how about you?
well, I'm not that generous for this movie. I watched it when I was younger and still had questions, and I watched it again and still had questions. It was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna go right down the middle, 3.
Okay, John, how about you?
All right, so I'm kind of right there with Chad. A lot of plot holes and stuff, but still a good movie that holds your attention. I'm a little higher than the 3 just because in my heart I can't place it lower than Flash Gordon because that really feels unfair to this film. Um, but at the same time, it doesn't quite edge out to the other 2 that we've watched to me, so I'll keep it even with the 3.5.
Y'all are generous. Y'all really are.
It was a good to watch movie. I'm gonna rate
It was
it
a
higher.
fine movie. It wasn't. I mean, it was a good enough movie to make you think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It was a good enough movie to make you think. It's not will I watch it again? Probably not. And I really and that's one thing I'm really looking at this year when I'm doing my ratings is it rewatchable?
Mhm.
And I would not watch this again. It was fine movie for a first time view. I did it, but I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. Or I'm sorry, 2.5 lightsabers. Jeez, what am I doing with the stars?
Stars,
like Siskel and Ebert
lightsabers,
or something. Great, no, 2.5. That's where I am.
Direct to Enterprise.
Please contact us. Tell us if you agree with our ratings or how you would fix or improve this movie, or if there's a movie that you would like us to review. The easiest way to do that is if you're watching us on YouTube is to comment below. For those of you that are audio-only listeners, you can reach us on either X or Facebook at TheseSciFiGuys. Or you could email us, TheseSciFiGuys@gmail.com.
Yeah, that would be the easiest way to do that is email us, comment. It's funny, our Spotify and Apple podcast is just like really blown up since we started doing it this year. I took all of our stuff. And speaking of which, I went back and, I was over the Christmas break, I was, converting all of the stuff to MP3s and uploading them. And, most of our shows back in our first season were like 20 minutes long. Most of these are pushing an hour now.
Yeah.
I guess because we're doing
different.
more. We are doing more. We're getting more behind the scenes. We're getting more. I mean, the questions that we're having this year have been fantastic. I mean, they really make you think. So, speaking of questions and all that, next time for us is a movie that I'm picking out, and I wanted something that was a little bit lighthearted because, especially after Contact, this was kind of deep. So this is going to be a little bit more of a lighthearted movie. This is Inner Space. So, have any of you never seen this movie?
Listen, if the question is, have you ever or not seen this movie? I'm
It's always
usually
John.
Okay, so John and Shane have never seen this movie. All right, you guys will hopefully you will enjoy it. We'll have more discussion on it next time. But yeah, it's a typical 80s movie, but it's comical. It really is fun. I think it's been years since I've seen it, so again, it could be that, hey, I thought it was funny then, and maybe it's not funny now. I don't know. I don't watch it before we pick this stuff out, so we pick it out, and then we kind of do the podcast on the podcast. I mean, we do have some stuff picked out for the next couple of weeks. Actually, we got them picked out for a while here. Oh, hey, so Chad went in there. You put in a lot of other ones. I didn't even see those. All right, so yeah, we've got we do have a lot of stuff already picked out, but as it said earlier, hey, if there's something out there that you guys want to hear, let us know. We changed up the stuff. We've already changed our movies around a couple times. I almost wanted to ask John, hey, on your next one, if you want to do one that he has planned, because the wife and I watched it last night. We were in the mood, and we were like, oh, that looks like a fun movie, and we're going to talk off air. So, and we'll see. Anyway, until next time.
Crash and burn.
These Sci-Fi Guys is an independent broadcast by The Sci-Fi Guy Productions. Super Epic is music courtesy of Alexander Nakarita and is found on creatorchords.com. For more information on upcoming episodes, follow us on X at The Sci-Fi Guys. For our audio-only listeners, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment to let us know how we're doing.